Hey, what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and did you miss me? Aw, if you did, good for you. If you didn't, well, sorry, because you have no option. Welcome to part 7 of What If Midoriya Was an All-for-One fan. Please sit back and relax, because you are in for a treat, albeit a very bitter treat. With that out of the way, let's get this story going, shall we? A mass text went out to the various villains inside of UA. Tactikill, Slaying Mantis, Pentagonist, Spectre, Gremlin, and Feedback, aka Izuku Midoriya, Togaru Kamakiri, Naito Monoma, Toru Hakakure, Minoru Mineta, and Kyoka Jiro. It was sent by Shigaraki, or Golden Fox, as the media had dubbed him.
First, I want to welcome the newbies to the league. Now, Master and I were talking, and we decided to make you guys your own cell within the LOV. From this day on, you're all members of Phoenix Squadron. You'll all be led by Tactikill, and this is not up for debate. Second, today you're all in for a surprise when your classes go to do rescue training at the USJ. All of you are given free roam to beat the crap out of the cannon fodder, since they'll be coming for you too. Think of this as the real test to see if you're league material. Last thing for the newbies, Dr. Ichiko is almost done making your new suits and gear.
The 6 read the text, mentally preparing themselves for the day ahead. What they weren't prepared for was the army of media vultures gathered outside UA, asking about All Might. Little to say, they paid them no mind. After everyone had gotten seated, Vlad King went over attendance and then went to morning announcements. The first being of a trip to the USJ after lunch for rescue training alongside Class 1A. The second announcement being the class needed to choose a class rep and vice rep. The class eventually agreed to a voting system with 4 candidates giving their case to be class rep or vice rep. The candidates were Midoriya, Kendo, Shoda, and Monoma. The votes were tallied, leaving Midoriya with 8, Kendo with 6, Shoda with 3, and Monoma with 2. So it was decided that Midoriya would be rep and Kendo would be vice rep. Midoriya decided to eat his lunch in the classroom so he could 1. Go over everyone's dorm approval forms for Vlad, and 2. Send somebody a private message on HooTube. As the bell rang, he'd gone through the papers and everyone had been given the okay to live in the future 1B dorms that should be finished after the upcoming sports festival. Everyone from Class 1A and Class 1B walked onto their buses with an ever-annoying Ida shouting and hand-chopping. Midoriya didn't pay much attention during this bus ride. He was only pulled from his daydreaming when Kamakiri grabbed him by the shoulder. Huh? What? No! I said it wasn't like that! Huh? Oh, what? Midoriya smiled sheepishly as everyone on the bus stared at him, confused and a little intrigued, wanting to know what he must have been daydreaming about, for the usually stoic teen to just crack into a mess like that. Midoriya cursed Shigaraki internally because of what he said before that he struggles to even look at Jiro now. He had to make things awkward for Midoriya. Hey man, you okay? You've been daydreaming and wanted to be alone all day. What's up? Kamakiri looked to Midoriya, concerned that Midoriya was cracking under the pressure of what was coming, but the answer he got wasn't what he expected. Just forget it. It was something Yamaki said to me about someone, and it was a load of bull, but he got under my skin with it. This got a few people off his back, except for Monoma, Kamakiri, and Tokage. The 3 shot knowing glances at each other, smirking. So, who's the lucky girl, Izuku? Or guy? I won't judge. Midoriya growled at Monoma, getting more and more embarrassed, whilst he also got annoyed beyond belief. For the last time, me and Jiro are just friends! Midoriya's eyes widened as he realized what he'd shouted, and quickly stuffed his head into his helmet to hide his embarrassed face from everyone.
Oh, just wait until the 1A girls hear about this juicy gossip.
Tokage giggled almost evilly at Midoriya's embarrassment, sensing an opportunity to embarrass Jiro as well. This just caused Midoriya to groan inside his helmet as everyone laughed and chatted before the bus reached its stop, the USJ. Aizawa and Vlad walked up towards the Rescue Hero 13. They began murmuring amongst each other about All Might before finally starting the lesson. During 13's boring lecture on how quirks can kill, big shocker, right? Midoriya spotted one of Kurogiri's warp gates along with many others that were hidden but thanks to the infrared mode, Midoriya could see the thugs' heat signatures around the USJ. Midoriya watched as Shigaraki stepped out of the main warp gate, his golden fox mask shining in the light. He was followed by a massive Nomu. Guess this was the greatest Nomu that All for One spoke of. Finally, Kurogiri materialized next to Shigaraki.
I don't see him, Kurogiri. Guess All Might's running late. Wonder how many NPCs we have to kill before we can trigger the boss fight.
Shigaraki laughed maniacally beneath his fox mask, locking eyes with Midoriya and the other members of Phoenix Squadron, thinking to himself, "Showtime, Izuku." Midoriya immediately shouted out using his bottled-up rage from over the years to make it all that more realistic, as he used his claws to run along the ground at increased speeds, knocking things out of his way before jumping at Shigaraki, completely ignoring Aizawa and Vlad's instructions to stay back, making them have to run into combat after Midoriya.
Golden Fox, I'm gonna crush you!
Midoriya screamed before getting sucked into a warp gate and spat out onto the boat in the flood zone, later being joined by Asui, Mineta, and Yanagi. Seems Kurogiri had split up and scattered most of the classes around the USJ. Not a bad plan, Tamura. Midoriya looked over the bow of the ship, getting a full view of the area, before nodding as he formulated a plan, occasionally using his telekinesis to keep the thugs in the water from attacking the boat, even having to shatter a giant claw made of water. Midoriya slowly grinned inside his helmet as he watched Vlad and Aizawa fight back to back.
Okay, I have a plan, but first we have to get out of the flood zone. Yanagi, I'll need your help on this. I need you to focus your quirk on the boat at the exact same time I do. Asui, Mineta, keep those villains off us. We're going for a ride.
Everyone nodded to Midoriya's plan, trusting he knew what he was doing.
Call me Sue. And you got it, Midoriya. Ribbit. But what are we gonna do?
Midoriya looked back, pointing skyward as he and Yanagi focused their telekinetic-type quirks onto the same object, combining their powers, causing the boat to lift out of the water and eventually start floating over the main plaza, distracting some of the thugs for a brief second, allowing Aizawa and Vlad to get the upper hand. They lifted the boat through the air, with them on it, taking it towards the various zones, using it to collect their various classmates. The boat grew heavier with each student coming aboard before eventually Midoriya and Yanagi's stamina gave out, causing the boat to crash into the stairs as it was on its way to drop everyone off by the exit. Midoriya climbed from the wreckage and watched as Nomu smashed Aizawa's face into the ground over and over again while it stood on Vlad's back, keeping him pinned. Midoriya groaned internally as he jumped from the boat wreckage and threw a sharp piece of metal at Nomu, slicing the arm it was holding Aizawa with.
Hey, Fugly! Back off the hobo and my teacher!
Midoriya called out through his mask, taunting Nomu, daring it to attack him. Listening to Midoriya's taunt caused Vlad to laugh a little and cough a bit of blood up. Please tell me he didn't pick that stuff off of you, Vlad, because if he did, I am going to kill you if we make it out of this. Aizawa winced in pain as he got up, throwing the limp, separated arm away from him and glaring daggers at Vlad King. Oh, fuck. I can neither confirm nor deny these accusations. Vlad jabbed back as he punched the off-balance Nomu, knocking the giant monstrosity onto its back, screeching like a wild beast in agony. The two pros turned their attention to the Nomu as Midoriya floated over them. The two teachers watched in disbelief as the Nomu regrew its arm with a terrible sound of bones cracking into place as they regrew, along with a squelching of muscle tissue and flesh regenerating. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. With the services Skillshare provides, you can get access to many in-depth tutorial videos on basically anything you want to learn. Each class that they have is bound to help you with your creative endeavors. Do you want to learn how to make videos like this one? Learn how to write scripts or edit audio? Skillshare has you covered. And with our link, you can have a 14-day free trial. So what are you waiting for? Click the link now and get 14 days worth of classes free. Link in the description below.
Sensei, permission to put this monster out of its misery, 'cause that is definitely not human.
The teachers looked at each other and backed away, giving Midoriya a nod. As they did, he outstretched a hand towards the massive Nomu. At this moment, All Might burst through the doors, about to shout his iconic phrase, "I am here," only to have a brief PTSD flash of a man in a black helm floating with one hand outstretched and the other by his side, then for it to vanish, showing Midoriya in the exact same pose. All Might watched, unable to move as his heart raced and his breathing grew uneven. The monstrosity screeched out as it burst into flames.
Infernal punishment!
Midoriya roared out the name of his new attack across the USJ, before finally dispersing the flames with a single switch of his hand, leaving behind a towering skeleton of the Nomu that once stood there. Not a trace of blood, flesh, muscle, or gray matter remained for it to use to regenerate from. Eventually, the heavy bones collapsed to the ground with a loud thud. Looking around, Midoriya watched as Shigaraki and Kurogiri fled. Feigning exhaustion, Midoriya fell from the air, landing in Aizawa's grasp.
Well, it looks like there was a boss fight, all right. Just not the one I was expecting. See ya, Midoriya. Remember, I dusted your dad. Now you and your mother are next.
Midoriya and Aizawa growled at Shigaraki at once as he walked away waving. What came next was of little surprise to Midoriya, but it still felt better. As the next day came, Izuku and Inko sat in Principal Nezu's office, discussing Inko moving into UA's campus with the other teachers in a special dorm that was made for them. However, Nezu dropped some information on his mother he wasn't expecting to come to surface, or even possibly be a thing. She used to be a hero from UA. Miss Midoriya, I'm afraid the villain Golden Fox attacked us at the USJ today, and apparently he explicitly made a threat to young Izuku here, declaring he would come for both you and your son. Inko, I'd like to offer you housing here at UA to keep you safe from that horrible man. Furthermore, as you were a graduate and former pro hero prior to your incident, I'd like to offer you a teaching job here too, so you can still make a living, if not a better one. Izuku looked at his mother in disbelief. Why did she never tell him she was a hero? How could she have been a hero with such a weak telekinetic quirk? Midoriya simply bombarded his mother with these questions before she could even respond to Nezu. Izuku, I'm so sorry. I should have told you years ago. Yes, I was once a pro hero. I was called G-Force. As for my quirk, you should know that too. There was once a terrible, terrible villain who had the power to steal quirks. He tried to steal my telekinesis quirk, back when it was almost as strong as yours is now. He almost managed to take it, but the process was incomplete, leaving me with 5% of my original quirk, and him with the remaining 95%. If it wasn't for some of the heroes that I call friends, I'd likely be dead or quirkless. Midoriya lowered his head, the world vanishing in that moment. All he could see was himself and Inko. He leaned his head on her, before looking up at her, smiling whilst deep down his rage was boiling over. It looked like the League of Villains were the only ones he could trust, if even his own mother lied to him for so many years. All for One and the others were the only family he needed. Midoriya had packed and moved all his things that he needed into the truck, along with his mom's stuff. Cementos and Powerloader pushed production of the dorms forward after the attack by the League of Villains, making them ready to move into by the next day. So most students who weren't recovering from the USJ attack spent their day off moving into the dorms. Later into the afternoon, Midoriya sat in the cafeteria eating a delicious lunch, only to choke on it, as he heard a voice behind him. So, it's not like what, Midoriya? Don't tell me Yamaki has put thoughts in that brain of yours, Jiro said with a teasing grin as she sat down with her tray, later joined by the rest of the Phoenix Squadron. I think we'd all like to hear how it is, Midoriya. Kamakiri joined in on the teasing as Monoma just laughed with Mineta at their normally vicious and sadistic villain of a leader turning into a squirming, blushing mess. Ugh, when the squadron revealed themselves as villains, Midoriya was going to kill Tokage personally for doing this to him. For the last time, I see Jiro as a friend. Yamaki was just making fun of me for hugging her, so shut up, please. I've been through enough crap lately. First, my mom turns out to be an ex-pro, and now she's gonna start teaching here in a few days. The five sat at his table, looked at Midoriya with their mouths agape. Things had turned so quickly from harmless teasing to learning that possibly the second strongest member of the League of Villains was the son of a pro hero. This could be problematic. Midoriya sat in class waiting for the others to turn up. Vlad looked at him with a slight frown and sighed, approaching Midoriya. Hey, Midoriya, I understand you may be having a bit of a hard time and all, but I wanted to tell you two things. First off, never do that again. Jumping at a villain with the intent of revenge isn't a hero's way. Secondly, thank you for saving my life from that thing. That and calling Aizawa a hobo. Nothing dulls pain like a bit of humor mixed with adrenaline. Midoriya smirked and nodded at his teacher. For a pro, Vlad wasn't too bad, he guessed. Eventually, the rest of the class poured in, taking their seats, and Vlad gave the morning announcements, informing the class of the upcoming sports festival and how he expected them to train like hell so Class 1B could kick 1A's asses. So that's what Class 1B did. They trained harder than they ever had before. Midoriya later snuck another anonymous suggestion in Nezu's suggestion box about the festival. The mouse bear read the familiar handwriting with a smile and quickly signed off on it, photocopying it, then sending it to each member of the faculty. They were interested to see that this year's students would be going out in their hero costumes, support gear included, so the hero course could show off everything they're capable of, from looks to gear to quirks to combat ability. But during the 2 weeks prep time, the other courses would be granted use of any support gear the support course had available, so they too could complement their quirks and be given top priority to level the playing field with the hero courses. The classes trained for 2 weeks to prepare for the sports festival. Midoriya had to admit this was quite possibly the most idiotic, media-grabbing song and dance he'd ever seen. Seriously, all it'd take is one villain tuning in and writing down the quirks of the next generation of heroes and how to prepare for them, and boom, they're ready for an enemy they won't be fighting for years. Dressed in his jumpsuit, gray lab coat, black metal chest plate with a claw pack attached, Midoriya also wearing his signature black helmet with its 8 red eyes, along with his black metal gauntlets. He looked at Hagakure, Jiro, and Mineta, each now sporting their new outfits, courtesy of Dr. Ujiko. Mineta now wore a black jumpsuit with a collar that covered his face below his eyes, along with a pair of boots and gauntlets with barbs on that allowed Mineta to climb walls and ceilings without falling. Mineta's new outfit also sported a pair of goggles that operated similar to Midoriya's, but on a far less complicated scale, only allowing the short teen access to infrared, night vision, and zoom. Mineta's gauntlets also featured retractable claws in the fingertips, improving the short villain's hand-to-hand combat. Hagakure caught the attention of many members of her class, as she wore a white jumpsuit with a metal collar with 2 points sticking out from the left and right, a pair of boots that had specialized soles built into them, allowing her footsteps to be near silent, and a pair of gloves with a blue circle on their palms. Yet, it wasn't the costume change that shocked everyone. No, it was the fact that thanks to Hagakure's collar, she could enable and disable her invisibility, her hero suit also able to turn invisible with her. Jiro's new attire hadn't undergone too many cosmetic changes. As for non-cosmetic additions, Jiro seemed to have more than a few, these being 2 stun batons along with a metal pack similar to Midoriya's, but smaller and sleeker in design, with wires connecting to Jiro's new wrist and boot-mounted speakers, along with her mask that covered her mouth. When the 3 teens were prompted to answer where they got the new equipment, they each answered that Midoriya got them a sponsor from overseas. With all students gathered from the first year, the classes made their way onto the field, surrounded by a cheering audience, with President Mike and Aizawa giving commentary from a box high up overlooking the whole stadium. And hosting the festival was Midnight and, oh great, Inko Midoriya, or G-Force as she was introduced. Inko wore her old hero costume. It was a dark green kimono and eye mask. Her kimono had the symbol of a hand with a spiral in its palm on the back. This was going to be a long sports festival, Midoriya thought, seeing the duo of Inko and Midnight laughing to each other. On the bright side, at least Midoriya would get to see if any of the training he'd assigned his squadron had paid off. And that's our video for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. Before we go, there's a little bit of housekeeping I want to go over with you all. First, We the Celestials has many other incredible content and stories for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description, so please feel free to check out all the other incredible content our team creates. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the production of today's awesome content. The writer, the audio editor, and the video editor, give them some love because they do a lot of work here. I'm just the voice. Those are the real magicians behind the magic. Give them some love, please. Their information is in the description below as well. And that's it for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have an amazing day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been Tim. Mustache out.